Well, fall is prime tree planting time in Oklahoma, so you may be wanting to plant some of your own trees. And many species of both trees and shrubs do much better if they are planted in the fall. Now, if you think about it, there's some good reasons for that. The way our Oklahoma summers are and what we've been experiencing here, when you plant trees and shrubs in the spring, a lot of times they don't have time to get rooted in really well before that hot weather sets in. However, if you plant them in the fall, they have a nice, cool season. A lot of times we get a lot of our rain in the fall. They can get well established in the fall before going into the winter, and then they come out in the spring and they've already got a very good root system on them, and they're much better prepared to withstand these hot summer temperatures that we get. That's why fall planting in Oklahoma is a really good idea, and October is the perfect month to do that. Now, as we're thinking about planting trees, a lot of times people will plant trees that they like or they've used in another area of the country, and they don't always do well, even with the fall planting. Well, today we're going to take a look at some really tough trees for Oklahoma. And believe it or not, several of these trees are actually native to the state. And one of those trees we're basically standing under right now is the western soapberry. Now, you may recall seeing these in really tough places. I know growing up, there was one of these trees growing in the playground, and it's still living even today. And that's a tough spot because there's soil compaction, there's also dry conditions. It's between a sidewalk and a road. It's very hot, and guess what? Western soapberries actually like those hot, dry conditions. They also can take the heat very well, and as you can see here, we have some nice leaf color on it. Now, a western soapberry is actually a medium-sized tree. It's anywhere from 30 to 40 feet tall and about that wide, and it has a nice kind of an umbrella-shaped growth habit on it. You can see here as we look up that the tree is not really weeping, but it does have a nice rounded shape to it. Now, the leaves on it are compound. This whole thing right here, let me grab one of these, that is the entire leaf, and the leaflets are actually small. Now, what this does is give the tree a little bit more of a fine texture appearance, while underneath the tree we do have shade, but it's not a really dense shade that we have here. Now, one of the other good qualities about this tree is that the wood on a western soapberry is a very tough wood, so that makes it wind and also ice resistant. So that's another good reason to grow it in Oklahoma, is because it is resistant to breakout because of weak wood. And it also has some nice qualities to it. In addition to being nice and green during the summer, it has a pretty yellow fall color to it, and we also have here the soapberries on it. Now, this makes it nice, but it also makes it a somewhat messy tree. You wouldn't want to put this right next to your patio, but these kind of greenish berries right now will actually start to shrink, and there's some that are starting to shrink right here and turn more of a yellow color. You can see them right there. And then those will actually turn kind of a bronzy orange color, and it will persist on the tree throughout the winter, so it makes it kind of nice. Now, as I'm looking at these berries, there is the downside to this tree right here. These are the red shoulder bugs, and they tend to like this tree. Now, while these bugs won't hurt anything at all, they don't hurt the tree, they don't hurt anything else, they can be somewhat of a nuisance. So this is another reason not to put it right up next to your patio or right up next to the house. But it is a nice tree for the back, and again, it's a tough tree. It can survive once established without a lot of water. Now, I'm going to break right here and tell you that when we're talking about trees that survive very well and they're drought tolerant, that means once they're established. So the first 2 to 3 years that you've planted a tree, you are going to have to water that and take care of that more than after the tree has become established and it's got a good root system. And now we're going to take a look at some more tough trees. Well, this is another one of our native trees. This is an Osage Orange, also known as a hedge apple and a bodart tree. And not only is it a native tree, but it's also got a lot of history. This has been planted a lot throughout the state to use as hedgerows, and it's also got very, very strong wood. Now, the strong wood makes it a good tree to plant in our yards because it will be wind and also ice resistant. It won't break out, but it's also good because the wood from this tree we use to make bows. It's a very strong wood. The other thing that's really neat about the wood of this tree is that it has properties in it that causes it to resist rot. So if you use it to build with, it really is a very good wood. Now the wood inside, though we can't see it, has a characteristic orange color to it, but what we can see on the outside is also very nice. You noticed as we were first looking at the tree, it has a very large leaf to it, and this gives it a much coarser texture than the western soapberry that we were looking at, and so the shade beneath this tree, once it gets established, is going to be quite a bit more. Again, this is a tree that likes a hot, dry side. Of course, you know, if you can see it growing along the side of the road as you drive down the road, you know it's a really tough tree. Now, this tree hasn't been planted in yards so much in the past because it has the large green hedge apples, you know, those ones that are about the size of a softball. They're really good to throw. The squirrels like to shell them out in your yard, so that makes it kind of messy. And also, they have thorns. Well, there are new cultivars now that are being developed that are thornless and also fruitless. These are the male trees that they're selecting. This particular one is called White Shield. So you're going to start seeing some more Osage Orange that you can purchase and plant in your own yards. Just look for a thornless male cultivar, and there are going to be quite a few of them out here fairly soon to plant. They are very tough trees. Now this is a larger tree. It can grow from 40 to 60 feet tall. It has a nice rounded canopy. It's not quite so globe-shaped. It's more kind of irregular, but it is rounded. And again, this is a very good tree, and also it's a relatively fast growing one. So a good selection, a male thornless cultivar for your own yard. Well, our third tree is yet another native tree to parts of Oklahoma. This is called the Kentucky coffee tree. And as you look at the tree, you'll notice that this particular one is a very tall tree, and the Kentucky coffee tree can get anywhere from 60 to 75 feet tall. And it has more of kind of an upright growth habit as compared to the other two, which tended to weep a bit. This one tends to grow straight up and then have branches that come out. And it's not really a globe shape on it, it's more kind of an irregular up and down shape. Now, the neat thing about a Kentucky coffee tree is it has these beautiful leaves on them. And this is a twice compound leaf, and if you look here, let me pull one of these off. You'll see just how big, even though the tree has a very fine texture to it, this entire thing here, that is one leaf. So all of this is going to fall off in the fall. And once it's done that, the tree is actually very bare looking, just has the main framework to it. That makes it a very good energy conservation tree because you get your shade during the summertime, but then in the fall and winter, when you would like to have more sun, you have a very bare framework that lets a lot of sunlight in. Now, the Kentucky coffee tree gets its name because the settlers in Kentucky used to boil and grind the seeds that come from this tree to make coffee. Now, in actuality, the seeds of this tree are slightly poisonous, so you wouldn't want to go get some and eat them. However, when they are boiled, they think that that helped to take out some of the poison in them, and they were used for coffee. That is the downside of this tree, however. There are male and female trees. So if you happen to get a female Kentucky coffee tree, you will have pods on the tree in the fall that are about 5 inches long that have little round marble-like seeds in them. That makes the tree slightly messy. While the pods are very pretty, you probably wouldn't want to put it over a sidewalk or a driveway. Now hopefully they will come up with some male cultivars that they can actually propagate so that they can sell those to you and know that they're going to be male and not have the pods. So in the future, we'll hope that they come with a cultivar like that. Now the other good thing about this tree, again, it has pretty strong wood, and it's also very drought tolerant. Now this is one of the trees that will take a moist side as well, and this particular tree is grown in an area that has a little bit more water, so you can see that it's got a pretty lush growth of leaves on them. Now we have a tree growing in an area that hasn't gotten any water, and it still is doing quite well. However, the leaf cover on it is very scattered. So it's a tree that adapts to the site that it's growing, which is what we need here. Well, we're going to take a look at one final tree that's just a beauty. Well, our final tree is just a really pretty tree. Now, this is a maple, and it is not native to the state of Oklahoma. In fact, it's not even native to North America. It's originally from China. However, it is a great choice if you would like to plant a maple in your landscape here in Oklahoma. This is a great one to choose. This is a Shantung maple, also known as a purple blow, And as you look here, you can see one of the great qualities about this tree is that the foliage on it is very resistant to the heat and hot drying winds that we have. It really does not get leaf scorched like we find on a lot of other maples that we've planted for that beautiful fall color. However, they get a lot of leaf scorch during the summer. A Shantung maple does not. It's very resistant to that. It's also very resistant to drought once it's established, so it's a good maple to have in your landscape. The other neat thing about this tree, it's a smaller tree. It's anywhere from 20 to 30 feet tall, and the branch angles on this tend to be pretty good. They're a lot better than some of your other maples that tend to have a very narrow branch angle. For the most part, this has some very wide branch angles on them. Now what's nice about that is, again, it makes it more resistant to wind damage and also breaking out from ice. And one of the last things, one of the reasons that people like to plant maples in the yards most of all is because of that great fall color. And it has a beautiful fall color. It's anywhere from yellow to red to orange, depending on the seedling. So anyway, a Shantung maple is a very nice choice if you'd like a maple in your own yard.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.